Shavy Slotowitz is a veteran educator living in Melbourne, Australia. In the early 1960s, she was a student in Base Rivka High School in Brooklyn, New York.
Anyone who knows the particular class I was in remembers us as being very wild and very difficult class. I grew up in a very privileged generation where we had direct access to the Rebbe very often. My mother, she always would go in for all kinds of things, and then whenever she had problems with me, I got dragged along. And it was in that brilliance of the simplicity of the answers of the Rebbe that were just so brilliant. I have no miracle stories, but he definitely shaped my life in many ways. I always was very fond of animals, probably because I was an only child. It's known that every Friday, Erev Shabbos, the Rebbe would go to visit his mother on President Street. He'd go from 770 and walk down Kingston Avenue to President Street. One of those Fridays, Erev Shabbos, I had heard some kitten crying somewhere, and I picked up this kitten. I was always bringing stray animals home and drove my parents absolutely crazy with it. And I had this little kitten I was holding in my hand, and as I'm holding it and about to go home with it, I noticed the Rebbe coming, and I sort of didn't know what to do. Should I cross the street? Should I go into a shop? All the stores were already closed at that time. Do I try to find a building that's open? I just didn't know what to do. And while all this was going through my mind, I pretty much froze. The Rebbe came, as was passing me, stopped, looked at me, looked at the cat, gave me a huge smile and wished me a really good Shabbos. I was like in heaven. I ran home with this kitten and told my mother what had happened, and says, "You're not letting me throw this cat out. I'm keeping it." And I felt that sort of legitimized my feelings for animals. And when I would go in with, I didn't want to do a report or I didn't want to write something, the Rebbe would say, "Well, write about something you care about." And this is our high school yearbook. That time was Rabbi Majeski wanted us all to write an article for the yearbook in Hebrew. It was like the first real yearbook that Beis Rivka ever had, because we were the first graduate. So he really wanted to make a big deal and have everyone have a Hebrew article in particular. He wasn't that fussed about whether we had an English article, but to submit a Hebrew. And I thought, I couldn't even, write English, let alone a Hebrew. It was like, no, I just wasn't going to do it. You couldn't talk me into it. So one of the times when I went in, the Rebbe said, there must be something I care enough about and care deeply about that I would want to make the effort to write about. And I think I said, the only thing I can think of that I care about deeply are animals. And he said, well, why not Tsar Balachayim? And that's, what I wrote about. And I had a neighbor who was an Israeli, help me with the Hebrew. But I had to do research on it, and I found it actually very interesting to just do the research. And there was another time also with asked me what my problem was. I says, I can't remember if it was world history or American history. It was, a big fat book. Never read it. I have just no interest in it. I can't sit for the regent. There's no way. I'm just going to fail. And he said, well, don't look at it as, the whole book. Just take one paragraph at a time. Read one paragraph at a time. If you finish the first one, go to the next one. And obviously I didn't get through the whole book. But what it did was it stimulated an unbelievable interest for me in history until today. And I did sit for the regents, and I did pass. But look, the Rebbe definitely shaped the way of my self-esteem, how I perceived certain things that were a bit different or a bit unusual. And like I say, the main thing is he's able to just motivate not just me, but many people to do things they never thought they were capable of doing or wanted to do.